Jovenes, in case you don't know, and I'm sure I'm talking to maybe 10% of you that haven't heard of Jovenes yet, but Jovenes is an NGO, is a non-governmental nonprofit that provides educational scholarships and support to talented young students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. The organization empowers their students to pursue higher education and achieve their full potential. Because a lot of life depends upon where you were born and what circumstances you have, right? God distributed intelligence to everyone equally. Unfortunately, we can't take advantage, or some people cannot take advantage of it. Jovenes offers financial assistance, mentorship, and other resources to help students succeed academically and professionally. Their goal is to break the cycle of poverty by providing opportunities of higher education and deserving youth. Now let's turn to Mr. Don. No, I'm not done, Don. My goodness gracious. Enthusiastic, isn't he? Yeah. Don has served as the Director of Development since 2018 and continues to be the President Emeritus after serving as President from March 19 to March 2023. In addition, Don mentors students at Jovenes. But the other career that Don has had, which I certainly have appreciated over the years, Don has an MA in Theater Arts, as an MS in Kinesiology, and with an emphasis on sports psychology, and is a certified teacher of the Alexander Technique. But more importantly, in which I keep bugging him every time I see him, I say, when am I going to see you on stage again, Don? Don is well known as an accomplished singer and as an actor. Celebrated for his local performances, Don has had a successful career as a countertenor, both here and in Europe. So when you see him, ask him, when is the date for your next performance, please? For me, do that. Don, welcome, and we'd love to hear a little bit about Jovenes, too. Thank you.
It's really simple. For every sponsorship I get today from this room, you get one note. Yep. Exactly. In fact, if I hold it long enough, then I get 2 sponsorships for the same note. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, everybody, for inviting me today. As has already been said, maybe half of my presentation has already been said. between Robin and Ron, and of course, one of our graduates, Carla Cadena, is here. I'm sorry, there's something technical going on. This is why I have a personal assistant. Okay, I can just move forward now? Great, all right. So, again, I'll just repeat. I'm Don Krim. I am President Emeritus and Development Director for Jovenes Adelante. Jovenes Adelante, at least as far as we're concerned and as far as we know, is the most complete, integrated, independent university support program in all of Mexico, if not, frankly, anywhere. It's... Thank you. Ron already mentioned this, but I do have it written down on my notes, so I better say it. A bit of housekeeping. If you're online having any technical problems, any questions, Diego, Ron are monitoring. Rest assured. On the screen is an overview of what I'm going to talk about today. My main hope is that everyone leaves here with a broader understanding of what Jovenes Adelante is and does, and why we are so prepared or so focused on preparing for what we really do think of as pretty radical economic change and integration in North America. Somebody mentioned Paul Harris and change earlier today. That's what this is about. Nonprofits that don't adapt, that don't change, that don't keep an eye on what's going on in the environment, they don't need to change their mission, but they may need to change the focus and the target. And we do that all the time. The bottom line for Mexico, now more than ever, Mexican college-age youth are the greatest, most undeveloped, important resource in Mexico. And they are the future, and they are here now. They are here today, and they are the future if we can only get them more highly educated. These are the things I'm going to talk about. Overview of Jovenes Adelante, impact, preparing for that radical economic integration. The radical comes from my husband, by the way, who likes to be very dramatic. So he threw in the word radical. We're going to talk about education and the gaps. Then we'll return to the specifics of Jovenes Adelante and certain strategic decisions and updates for 2024. I'll obviously talk about how you can help and support Jovenes Adelante in various ways. I'll close with a video. If I'd known that Carla was going to be here, I would have used the video featuring Carla, which, by the way, was made by Lalo over here, as well as all this presentation, but it will be about a different student. Right. Jovenes Adelante started about 22 years ago, and it's always had a singular purpose in supporting higher education for those who otherwise either might never begin or, equally importantly for us, wouldn't make it to the finish line. I'm going to repeat this number several times today, but just to give you a context, in Mexico, nationally, state level, locally, the university graduation rate, that's of kids who go into university, is 26%. Right? Jovenes Adelante, we are a third-party supporter. Our kids go to university all over Mexico, 83%. All right? We did update our mission this year. As you can see on the screen, obviously, I don't have a side-by-side comparison. But what we do is not any different. We're just a little bit more targeted. Jovenes Adelante finds and invests in university education for students with high impact potential, but lacking the privilege needed to unlock it. Students like Carla Cadena behind here, and we all know the high impact potential and realization she's accomplished for Rotary and across this city. Let's give a hand for Carla, please. We've also updated our vision. Our vision is of a Mexico that inspires hope and social mobility. We aspire to a Mexico where students can imagine a different future from what they came from. I have to add that that language specifically comes from our staff, not from our board. We have a fully Mexican staff. If you came to a board meeting of Jovenes Adelante, you would not know who was a board member and who was a staff member, because we have a wholly integrated, collaborative team. But that language, that's their vision. Okay? In large part, the Mexican staff is a voice that informs the board, even though we have Mexicans on the board, but the staff are much closer to the demographic of our students. As you know, Jovenes Adelante is a nonprofit. All our students need to demonstrate financial need, but we are putting an increased emphasis on merit. Merit is crucial for tracking long-term outcomes, and merit is what's going to make the big picture difference over the long term. Okay? This pyramid gives you a pretty good overview of the essential multidimensional elements of Jovenes Adelante. Every student starts out with a premium scholarship. That's 25,000 pesos a year, plus a laptop that's pre-furnished with programming to the needs of the student and their particular career. Every student has a mentor, an individual mentor. Robin is a mentor. I'm a mentor. From day one when the student comes in, all of our students have a mentor that meet with the student once a month and are there for the duration of their career. That's the backbone secret sauce of support that we know is the difference. Nori Contractor is also a mentor that I can see here. Oxenberg, sorry. We have a team of 20 volunteer psychologists who are working with our students. I can stand up here and make it sound so easy. But believe me, when we're supporting kids for 4, 5 years, it is not easy. I did an interview with a student yesterday, an applicant for the next class. She was in tears. while we were on the phone talking about what it was like when her father died. We have a kid on suicide watch. We have a school that's closing and kids we're going to have to deal with and start all over again. None of this is easy stuff, and those counselors are critical to our success. We have success skills classes. Those run from personal finance, self-esteem, presentation, all the way to transition of the workforce, interview preparation, how to present yourself, how to communicate, and obviously how to prepare a CV. Right? We also include English. We do have an English requirement. It's in our contract for every student. We measure, we assess our students. We have EFL tutors to support the students. The students need to create their own path and know what it is they're going to need for their profession. A primary school teacher in the campo does not need the same level of English as a computer programmer or an architect in San Miguel de Allende. We cover the cost of professional credentialing. For those of you who are from Canada or the US, the professional credentialing system in Mexico is extremely different. It's for every career. It can take 2.5 to 3 years. I think Lalo just got his titulación. It took almost 3 years. It can be really expensive, depending on the school you go to. We have a requirement for our students to pursue it, and we support them financially to get it. And now, more and more, we're having our own graduates are coming back and asking for further support to study a master's. So we have 4 currently active master's students. They are studying biomedical immunology, neurological cognitive learning sciences, international commerce in Germany, but studying in English. That student did a double major during COVID online, Fernanda Luna. And we have another student doing an online master's in cybersecurity at a university in Spain that allows him to work in either Spain or in Mexico. Right? Those are the basics of what we provide. We also provide funding for students who need extra money. Right? We ask for students' families to participate, or the students are working, but that doesn't always cover it. So the Betsy Davies Special Stars Funds provides a gap. Right? We have funds for emergencies. Obviously, some of these students who may have to start all over again in school, that's an emergency. They couldn't predict it. We've got extra funds for it. We have funds for this master's student to go to Germany, for her practica, for example. We have funds to support students for travel internationally and nationally, for professional development, as long as it's related, obviously, to their studies. I am going to take questions at the end, but so far is everything clear? Great. This year, 2024, take a look at the numbers. We are currently supporting 133 undergraduates and those 4 graduate students I mentioned. We're hoping to admit 40 to 45 new students this year. We have 275 graduates. And again, our success rate, 83% compared to 26% nationwide, locally, and on a state level. It's 3 times the success rate. There are ways for you to support. You can sponsor or otherwise financially invest in a student. You can mentor a student. You can tutor a student in English. We have tutors at different levels. We have tutors who have no formal training in English as a foreign language or English as a second language. We pair those with students who are just beginning, who just need someone to talk to, conversational Spanish. We have other tutors who have EFL and ESL training at the intermediate level, and we have some tutors that are specialized in TOEFL preparation. TOEFL, for those who don't know, it's a test of English as a foreign language. It's one of the international qualification exams for English. Now I'm going to get to what for me is probably most important, which is why. Why support students in higher education? Again, college students are the voices and the leaders of our future today. Their futures are rippling through their families. They're rippling through the communities. They're already role models. They're already telling their nephews, their nieces, their sisters, their cousins about Jovenes Adelante and the importance of higher education. They're already telling their classmates, hey, do you know that this exists? Right? They are our ambassadors. And that matters not just here, it matters for all of San Miguel, it matters for all of central Mexico and the Bajío, it matters for all of Mexico, because we all need this country to get better, safer, stronger, more equal. Any disagreement with that in this room? No. Great. All right. So that brings me to the big picture. Whether you know it or not, because we're getting down into the academic weeds now, right? But the future demographic and economic story of North America is that the political, macroeconomic, demographic landscape of North America and all of the world is radically changing. This started with COVID. COVID, supply chain issues, transatlantic, trans-Pacific cargo transport costs, global conflicts, they have all conspired to make our notions of globalization shift. They are really changing. And most analysts, if you follow in this detail, will tell you that the bottom line for North America is that offshore manufacturing is losing steam. China's long-term prospects are declining in both demographic and political terms. Most analysts will concur that to maintain and increase economic growth in North America, the solution for Mexico, for the US, for Canada, for business, for consumers in Mexico, for the broader population, that solution lies right here, right now in Mexico. The promise, the potential is unlimited because geographic and demographic factors are perfectly aligned. Imagine it takes 72 hours for a cargo ship from the Far East to reach a US port. It can be done in a matter of hours by truck or train if Mexico has the infrastructure in place. We are on the same continent, Mexico, the US, Canada. There's a large workforce in Mexico, and it's relatively young. If you're reading terms such as nearshoring, wondering why the peso is getting so strong and hitting us all so hard, that's the reason. Because the world changing is driving international business investment into Mexico at an unprecedented scale. And the primary regions for that investment are Mexico City and the areas around Mexico City, the northern frontera, such as Monterrey. That's where most NAFTA investment actually went. The southeast, and right here in the Bajío, in the central region of Mexico. Right? We are living with this overstressed system. We're experiencing the breakdown in long lead times, higher costs, supply chain issues. To resolve it, North America has a huge opportunity. The whole continent has to get its act together, and we'll leave that at that. Right? But there are three big issues: infrastructure, manufacturing capacity development in Mexico, skilled labor investment, that's obviously where Jovenes Adelante falls, and obviously security. It's easy if you live in San Miguel, or if you live at the coasts, or if your only conception of Mexico are the beaches. It's easy to think that the economy of Mexico is dominated by tourism, real estate, housing development, obviously energy and natural resources. But the truth is, as probably most of you know, Mexico is currently the largest partner and trading partner with the US. That's still the world's largest economy. Mexico is often erroneously described as a poor country. Mexico is not a poor country. It is the 12th largest GDP in the world. The problem in Mexico is wealth distribution, lack of privilege, lack of quality education for the majority of the people. Mexico is a relatively young population. The problem is that potential is undeveloped, untapped, undereducated, and that's why Jovenes Adelante is here. Some key numbers. Mexico has a population of 130 million. Notice 3 bullets down, 2/3 of the population is in working age, between 15 and 64 years old, 2/3 of the population. The median age is 30. Underage, 25%. Small senior population, relative to, say, the US and Canada. You can read these numbers. I'm not going to go down them specifically. But basically, Canada and the US have more aging populations than Mexico does. Countries that look a lot like Mexico, for example, are India and Turkey, and they're far away. What we don't have is educational output in Mexico. We don't have income inequality. We have income inequality, sorry. We have unequal opportunity and social mobility, and we have a large portion of the population that lacks privilege. Look at these numbers and ponder them. Only 45% of the Mexican population has a high school degree. If you enter prepa today, only 10% of you will graduate. That's from the Mexican census just this week. The population between age 25 and 34, the meat of the working population, only 23% higher education. And again, that frightening number, about 26%. There are only 33,000 master's degrees held in Mexico. And of the third of the people who have them, they're working in the US. This information comes from the OECD. It comes from endless amount of research that I've done to compile, as well as Mexican census information. I don't know of any country in the history of the Western world that has ever had an advanced economy without a well-educated middle class. Right? We know that higher education matters. We know about the employment benefits. Here, specifically in Mexico, you graduate from high school, you've got a 15% higher rate of employment than if you graduate from middle school. You go to university, another 10% advantage over that. If you have a university degree and you're male, you're making 78% more. 66% for women, always a gender gap. But women are enrolling in higher education much more. If you have a graduate degree, the salary premium is 70%. So how do we keep building more educated middle class? Now we come back to Jovenes Adelante specifically, and we start to look at how we've made some strategic decisions this year. We're putting more emphasis, as I said, on merit and promise. That's because long-term tracking, what happens to these kids after they graduate, right? What are they doing? How are they giving back? How is the strength and the resilience that they came with and went through, how's that translating down the line? We're tracking it better, but we're also putting a slightly higher weight, let's say. Obviously, our students have to demonstrate financial need, but we're putting some higher weight on quality of schools and the quality of the student. All of our students, we were terrified we weren't going to get any applicants this year because we put 9.0 as our minimum this year. We had lowered it in previous years. We still had 377 applicants. Right? We expanded to San Miguel de Allende, Dolores Hidalgo, Comonfort, because all of this is the region of the Bajío. Right? We have a higher priority for the public autónomos, what are called the autónomos in Mexico, the high-quality private institutions. They're not easy to get into. High-quality private schools. We're putting a renewed commitment to social responsibility, something I'm sure all of you can relate to, in our requirement. Does that mean that our kids have to be Rotary members when they come in to Jovenes Adelante? Of course not. Okay? It means they have to show us something that they have some awareness and investment in their communities. That can be just cleaning up the river where they live, taking care of dogs, taking care of cats, something that shows us that they have a social consciousness. Okay? And we are asking for a commitment to English. At the far extreme of the finest students we could possibly get if they needed our assistance, we are on a pilot basis. We have a new partnership on a pilot basis with Tec Monterrey. Tec Monterrey, for those who don't know, Harvard, MIT of Mexico, one of the 2 or 3 most important universities in all of Latin America. Very expensive private school, analogous to many schools in the US in terms of cost, but they take a lot of students who are at the same kind of low income level as our students, and they have the same requirements, in some cases even higher. Líderes de Mañana is an internal 100% beca to Tec Monterrey for colegiatura and inscripción, registration and tuition fees. However, there's a gap for living costs. There's a gap for food, for housing, for materials. Right? On a pilot basis, if we've got any kids from San Miguel who are going to Tec Monterrey and they're already in Líderes de Mañana, we got them. We've got them covered. Okay? Really, really excited about this long term. Okay? This year, as I've already said, we had probably our strongest overall candidate pool we've ever had. I've already interviewed 4 students, so I have a sneak peek. 377 initial applications. That's a screener, but it contains intense questions. Right? It's followed by a full application. We invited 200 students to send in a full application. We received 155. That's a 75% response rate. That's 50% higher than we've ever had before. Right? And we are already started with those interviews. Everybody always asks me this question. Yes, we have a higher level of female participation than male. Here's where we get into some strategic changes. Last year, we had 612 applications. We had to throw away 173 of those applications immediately because our program required 3 years or more of remaining study because of all the support we provide. That was painful for us. That was really painful for have to discard that many students, especially last year when the Biblioteca, which also has a wonderful scholarship program, was not having an open program for new university students. So it was painful, and we did a lot of head scratching. And we decided we need to find a way to support those kids. We haven't set a final number, but we do have what I'm calling, let's say, what we've done for years as a flagship. Now we have a finish line. Okay? Those kids who already have a proven track record, we already know they're going to be less of a headache because they're already proven themselves, right? But they need financial support to finish. Those are those kids between 2 and 3 years. Of course, what happens? Of the 377 applications we received this year, we had to discard 177 because they only had 1 year remaining. But it shows you how much determination and interest there is in higher education and how much support is still needed out there. We have medical students, more and more, not just nursing students, but doctors. Medical school, it is an undergraduate degree in Mexico, but there are stages afterwards, and it's basically a 7-year degree. So if I'm sponsoring a student for 5 years, those next 2 years, Jovenes Adelante is covering that, right? Unless somebody tells me they're willing to. And we're supporting our master's degree students. The master's degrees are a 2-year program, but they cost about 2, 3, 4 times as much, okay, as undergraduate. So if you were interested in sponsoring a student, right, there are many ways to do it, right? There are full sponsorships. I'll give you the specifics in a bit. You can be a half sponsor. You don't have to go find your neighbor and join them. Wonderful if you do, but you don't have to take that responsibility. We will do it. Right? You want to get a group of neighbors together and pool with them? Great. You want to just tell me, hey, I want to join a pool? Wonderful. Right? You want to sponsor a master's student? Fabulous, I love you. No contribution is too small, obviously. We need to, because of exchange rate issues, frankly, we need to find another way to find computers this year, because we're not certain that we can cover that all out of a sponsorship. Half sponsorships offer a lot of flexibility, and they're more financially achievable and reachable for a lot of people right now, especially with the exchange rate. So if you can half sponsor, I can use that for a finish line student, a medical student, a master's student. I can combine it, especially if you give me 2. It's really something I really want to develop. So we really have that campaign. And right now, we have a challenge grant. Countdown. 1 more week to April 15th. We have an anonymous donor who has $20,000 on the table. Those dollars are matched to 4 new half sponsorships. Basically, the donor won't be picky, right? You want to sponsor a student, full student, we'll match it, $9,000 to $9,000. That's over 5 years. You're paying for the entire time. Return on investment, obviously high. Education makes an impact that lasts. Education is not about charity. Education is about philanthropy. It's about building a future that lasts. The value to support a student, the value of the investment over 5 years is $9,000 US, $1,800 a year, $150 a month. Those are our bread and butter. Half of that, $4,500. A master's student, $5,000. You can do the math. You can come and talk to me about all of this afterwards. But this is what it takes. This is what it takes for these kids. Compared to what that costs what would you get for a $9,000 university investment in the US? Exactly. All right. I'm going to close with a short video, and then I'm going to take some questions. Okay. This video, this kid, Hector Sandoval, the most astonishing, ambitious, brilliant kid I ever had the privilege to interview for Jovenes Adelante. He comes from a small rural community between Atotonilco and Dolores Hidalgo. His mother doesn't work. His father is a welder, an iron worker, spent some time in the States. When I first met him, I thought, his parents must think this kid is from Mars. I mean, I could not control the interview, and I'm a professional interviewer, and this kid just talked my ear off for 2 hours. And all I could do was listen and have my jaw open. Right? The reason I'm highlighting him is because the brilliance, the talent is everywhere. We just have to find it. We have to invest in it. We have to nourish it. And that's what we're here for. Diego, could you start the video for me, please? By the way, this video is produced by Lalo.
Hola, me gustaría agradecer de forma general a cada uno de los patrocinadores que conforman Jovenes Adelante y sobre todo a los voluntarios que hacen que este sueño y estos destinos brillantes sean posible. Gracias por su esfuerzo y su dedicación y sobre todo apostarle a la educación y a la juventud.
Final screen, if we have it. Yeah. While Diego gets that up, I'm here for questions. We got 9 minutes. Yes.
The nearshoring potential in Mexico is enormous.
Yes.
But
Not the last screen.
I've
It's not
been-
the last slide, Diego. Sorry.
And I've been reading about the number of employees that it's going to require for these companies to come here. How prepared are we to fill those jobs, or are they going to have to be filled by non-Mexicans?
You've just asked the question to which the whole presentation was the answer. Mexico is not prepared to fill all those positions because most of those positions are going to require a higher level of education than the students that we see, at least in this area. Okay? Right now, there's a chicken and egg, right? We have an undereducated population, and we don't have quite enough capacity to absorb because the companies are waiting to finalize hiring until they have who they need. Right? And of course, a lot of the international companies are looking to Mexico because of low cost. They can still get high quality for a reasonable living wage here. They don't have to pay nothing, right? They're not going to pay what they're paying in the States, right? But it's a win-win if everybody can get their act together.
Questions?
Lee.
I'm curious what percentage of the students actually stay in the Bajío after they graduate and have direct impact here?
That's a really good question. And it's one we grappled with for a long time at Jovenes Adelante. Are we only going to support students who have a commitment to staying here and giving back? Or if they go to Germany and they come back after that experience and they inspire their families, is that just as powerful to the community as a role model? I don't actually have the specific answer. What I can tell you is that the students who are going into technology, right, they're looking at Querétaro, Silao, right, Mexico City. That's where those jobs are right now. Okay? Here, there's still a lot of focus on tourism and anything that means, including architecture, obviously tourist industry. The kids are smart. They know where the jobs are. Before COVID, about 50% of our applicants every year were looking at the tourist industry. COVID comes along, the next application cycle totally plummeted. Suddenly we had nursing applicants, we had lawyer applicants. You know, the kids know where the jobs are. There is a resistance for some, especially the female students, because of connection to family, right, to leave. You know, a benefit of Querétaro is that the state of Querétaro and the city of Querétaro is a large city and quite safe relative to many other locations in Mexico. That's quite different from a student having decided to go to Celaya for school, for example. Yeah. Joyce, did you have a question?
John, thank you for the presentation. It was amazing.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. One of the questions that I have, we have a serious issue in the States as it relates to funneling kids, if you will, who are high school graduates, into jobs, careers, et cetera, that will not pay them. They will not really add to society. How do you handle that kind of a problem? And you were just starting to touch on it because there is a lot of counseling and guidance that is required.
Right. So, obviously the U.S., there's a culture in the U.S. it's all about money, 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 right? And very self-directed until you get older and you're people like us and you're spending all these efforts to give back to the community. It just happens to be right now this community. We are not yet at the point where we're willing to make strategic decisions about the workplace for our applicants. However, if I have two perfectly equal students and I've got one who wants to be a doctor and wants to work in children's hospitals, for example, and I have another student who wants to be a computer programmer to make video games, which one am I going to go with? Right? If everything else is equal, I'm going to go for the one that we can identify now as something that is going to be of use and of support to the broader community. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes.
Unfortunately, we only have time for one more question.
Thank you.
Yes.
This was an amazing presentation. Do you help with job placement after graduation?
I can't see who's talking. Oh! That's also a really good question. So we have a graduate network now. We now actually are in contact with 155 of our graduates, and many of those students are sending us job information. Many of them are coming back as mentors. We are building job banks. We have a job bank that we post for our students from the city. We have a job bank that we're posting from UTSMA. Our students are sending us information. We're building a job bank. We are doing some level of career counseling, right? And we're slowly building relationships with some of the larger local businesses. Mentoring helps with that. It's where Mexican mentors have a real leg up for us, because Mexican mentors are younger and they're professional. So if I have a Mexican mentor who is a VP in HR special projects at Volkswagen Trucking, right? Yeah, now I have an inside track, right? That's the best we can do at the moment, right? Thank you so much for the questions. Thank you. Thank you.